We're here in the Zona del Silencio. This is Ryan, Agent Ryan.
This is Agent Mora.
Hello, Agent Mora. We made it back. Again, joined by your companion, the two-headed sheep rescue, Rhonda Yolanda.
Rhonda Yolanda's here.
She made it. Yes. Hi, girls.
Much better behaved, too. They're a lot calmer. They seem, I don't know, they seem happy to me. It's kind of hard to tell. The little tail wag, that's supposed to be good, right? It's not like they're scared.
They're looking a lot healthier, too, I got to say. I think that's the reason why they're happy. The wounds from that whole trap incident, that seems to have healed nicely. And I got to say, man, these girls are getting a lot of attention from everybody. There was a lot of top-of-the-line care administered for your little friends here. So, yeah, these girls look better than ever.
Yeah, and I'm so glad for that. I don't know what I would do. You know, you try to... you've had maybe some rescues go afoul, like you try to rescue a baby bird or something and it doesn't work out. And that's what I was afraid of. But like you just see it, their eyes are sparkly and bright. And I don't know, the fur is like not very soft, but it's brighter. It's better.
They seem eager. They seem happy to kind of be back out here. And
yeah,
I've been putting in some overtime these past couple of weeks because I'm overseeing my own little side project. Kind of got into last week. But while you were off base, I did get to spend some time with the girls, with Royo, as I'm going to call her now. And I have to say, they are a fascinating little creature. You want to hear some of my observations? Because that is part of what we do here. Research, observe,
all of this.
Disseminate. So I've been observing Rhonda Yolanda, this two-headed sheep, and I'm sure you know a lot of this, but I want to make sure my observations are accurate. As far as I can tell, Yolanda, the head on the right, she seems to be kind of the brains of the operation, while Rhonda, the head on the left, she's more kind of in control of the physical movements, not so much of the thinking. It's like a real symbiotic relationship.
Wait, so Yolanda's the thinker? Yolanda's the doer, Rhonda's the thinker.
No. I think
the other way around.
Well, Rhonda kind of lacks the thinking, but
because you said Rhonda for both of them.
No. Yolanda would be the head on the right. She screwed me up calling the one on the right the one that starts with a Y. But
yeah, it's their right, not our right. So Rhonda is going to be our left. So it goes in order, Rhonda, Yolanda, as you see them. Yeah.
Yes, and see, Rhonda's not so much into the thinking, but she is the sweetest one. She's very, very affectionate. And I find Yolanda, the one on the right, the demeanor to be a little cold, but she is very bright. I was actually able to teach her some tricks that might prove helpful out here. Yep. And look, I could talk about the girls all day, but we have a job to do. And part of that job is reading last week's notes.
Oh, yay. Okay, I'm ready for this.
From the desk of Issa, here we go. For Agent Mora, congratulations on completing the mandatory 2-hour mutated animal husbandry seminar, the Zona del Compasión.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, congrats, Agent Mora. And Rhonda Yolanda and her care schedule is now your responsibility. This includes the arrangement of accommodations and feeding while you are not present in the Zona. And while she is technically your companion, they are to remain here until further research can be done.
Yeah, I've noticed that because I was worried. You know, I wanted to bring them with me, but I also thought that they'd be scared to travel. So it's better that they stay in one place. I get it.
I think they need to stay here for a little bit. There's another note for you. It says, for Agent Mora, your idea to conduct a search for any remaining debris in the Laredo crash of Nuevo Leon is an intriguing one. If a team can be assembled, arrangements can be made to excavate the area.
All right. Cool. I mean, I hope I'm part of that team. I
think they're kind of throwing this to you. I think this is kind of how it goes.
Good. I'm fine with heading that research team. I would love that.
You know, you would think that non-bendable foil or whatever, even after 80 years, would still be out there. They weren't that thorough in the 40s cleaning this stuff up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And when you think about biodegradable materials, like this stuff is not from this planet. So I don't know what the deterioration rate would be like. I think it's worth checking out.
It'd be nice to get out and do a little work in a place where electronics work and stuff too. That's definitely not nice. In the Zona. So
it makes it a lot easier to use equipment when shit works.
All right, it does. Maybe she can put a team together. Maybe we can get a team going. I don't know. So here we go. A note from me for Agent Ryan. Excellent work in securing the test subject for your proposed LeChuse experiment. We are aware that this research is still active, but would appreciate an update on your current progress. That's coming. It's coming. We could talk about actually some...
They sound excited about it. That's a green light if I've ever heard one.
I've been keeping a little close. We can talk about a little some right now, Mora. Last time we were out here, our colleague Willow, she did agree to assist us in this groundbreaking work. And I did ask that you be present at the ritual.
Okay. Well, it really depends on what time because I'm a very, very busy person. And I'll try. Just let me know.
You know, the selling of the soul in exchange for the powers of a shape-shifting owl witch.
I guess that sounds important. All right.
Kind of like you around for this.
You're penciled in no matter what, but it is a pencil.
I'm a little worried that I might mess this up. So
you might mess it up. I guess that's why I don't want to be present. Is because you are probably going to mess it up, and I'm a little nervous. But you know what? Fuck it. I'll be there.
I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll work.
It'll work.
We have another note for Agent Ryan. The rebranding of Tomato Man is a great first step in bringing more serious attention to this case. If you and Agent Mora have any alternative names, please pass them on for the purpose of social media dissemination. I don't know. You got any ideas to fix Tomato Man? We can work on this. I thought of a couple.
Tomato Man.
The Laredo Lander.
Oh, I see what they're asking for. The Laredo Lander. I mean, it just makes it sound like all he does is land.
Well, that's kind of all it did. El Tomatillo?
I thought of tomatillos, but that's a whole different...
well, that is kind of a rougher tomato too, right? It's a very husky. He was kind of husky boy.
Very, very vibrant and zesty flavor. But Tomato Man, I don't know. They just want to go with like nightshade guy because I know tomatoes are part of the nightshade family of plants.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of there's a whole group of plants like that. And I don't know, nightshade sounds a lot cooler than tomato.
Nightshade. Oh, we keep bringing back the nautical because of the scuba thing.
Oh, right. The old scuba man.
I also thought of the Southern Spaceman.
Oh, that sounds
very
pretty
basic though.
I like the idea of going for like the astronaut or nautical scuba diver kind of thing because that's to me what he looked more like.
Yeah, he does. He does look like a
white
guy with a space helmet on. And my final one is just the man from Markin, which doesn't make any sense, but I thought was funny.
We'll call him Holy Diver. How about that?
We need to do some more work on this. We'll figure it out. And the final note for both of us, this is a Zona advisory from our acquaintance, Jamie. Agents be aware, an unidentified class of humanoid has been sighted in the Zona. This unknown being has been described as a 5'6" tall humanoid wearing a colorful jumpsuit, oversized shoes, and a bright rainbow wig with its face painted white and a large red nose.
All right, I know what this is.
According to reports from Zoneros, this creature is highly aggressive. Caution must be taken. Yeah, I agree. I think we know who this guy is.
Is this creature aggressively sad?
This might be a problem. I think this is something this is kind of on us. We'll have to deal with this. All right. Thank you for that advisory, Jamie.
Oh, still scary. I don't like getting these advisories. They always make me a little bit on edge. And I got worried because he said that it was 5'6", and like that's my height. I thought it was me for a second.
With yes, because you usually have oversized shoes, rainbow wig.
Oftentimes.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that out of the way, it is now time for today's case. Case number 006. Desert Cryptids. So we are sticking to the desert. This is an interesting topic. Yes, Mora?
Yeah, it's amazing for all that seems dead and empty and bleak in a desert, how much stuff is really going on because it's so unpopulated that, everyone thinks it's dead and nothing's happening, but there's a lot.
There is, because the majority of known cryptids are generally found in like highly wooded areas or in the water, honey, and sometimes in the air. We have the winged weirdies, but the desert, I was surprised to find quite a few interesting cryptid creatures who, like us out here, call the desert their home. And I want to go to you first. I know you've been doing a lot of research. What did you find as far as desert cryptids go, Mora?
Cactus cat, also known as cactus head. It's funny. They actually gave it a scientific name, even though as a cryptid, it wouldn't really be recognized within the scientific community. It's been cited by Henry H. Tryon in 1939, but first before that by William T. Cox in 1910. And the names are Cactophilinus inebrius. That makes no sense as far as scientific names go. Cactophilinus that would be two separate anyway, but that would infer
two
that it's a cactus.
Entire families of species of
yeah. Like you can't just throw that in like that. The other one makes a little bit more sense, I suppose, which is Felis spinobibulosus. Okay, like that makes a little bit more sense. If I were a kid, I'd be like, yeah, let's run with that. That's fine. It came closer to the mark. But
it sounds like it's almost from a Mad magazine or something.
Yeah, which I mean, as far as the artwork goes, also looks like it belongs part of Mad magazine, and I enjoy it. But so we know the scientific name of the domestic cat as we know it is Felis catus. So to me, they both totally dropped the ball by not calling it
Felis cactus. It was right there.
Right? It's right there. You throw in one C. And it also sounds like it's happy, like Felis, like Feliz.
But I do like the idea of this. I'm already intrigued that the first desert cryptid is cactus cat. So I got to know more.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, there are cats of the desert and they're cute. They usually have pretty big ears, as things in the desert have to be a little bit bigger in higher heat areas, to kind of expel heat better. But anyway, so
I feel like cats could really survive in the desert, though. That they'll pretty much eat any little creature, bug, or anything, and they love to, it's like a giant litter box.
It's one giant litter box. Yeah, and they're usually smaller stature, so it's like they need less energy. They don't have to consume as much big game, big prey. So it makes sense. Or they're just getting insects and lizards and stuff. And I totally get that. But this one seems to really enjoy cacti. It will eat cactus, but not in the way that's traditional. So let me just first describe how it looks and everything, so you can understand how it's even getting about these cactus prey. It's been described. This is from Cryptid Wiki. Just this quick little description. It's been described as a bobcat-like animal with thorn-like fur, sharp bones protruding from its front legs, and a branched tail. Now, that's really vague. The sharp bones protruding from the front legs.
Almost taking on a cactusy appearance with these bristly hairs. Yeah.
That makes sense too, right? You would think if you're in a dry, arid climate, you're going to want to, things aren't as lush and
it's true.
full.
It's not going to have a big mane or anything.
Yeah. So so the fur is very just like kind of prickly, almost porcupine-ish, kind of just like thorns coming off of the skin instead of full on fur, but it is covered in it. So, I mean, according to the people who have
its tongue's got to be so messed up. If there's a cat trying to clean himself with just thorns, just licking thorns constantly.
Thorns licking thorns. I mean, what would you rather? You can't have a soft regular cat tongue, and cat tongues are pretty rough already.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, cactus cat's tongue has to. Okay,
it's got to be straight up full of rocks to not get hurt trying to clean itself. But what it sounds like is it's got like these blades. Let's see, where is it that Henry Tryon has described it as having sharp knife-like blades made of bone that kind of protrude from the entire forearm section. And I do believe that he pretty much lifted all of his information off of William T. Cox, because I mean, the sentences and descriptions even use the same words and adjectives to describe it. So
this is like an early 1930s. It's like the internet doesn't exist. I found this story about cactus cat. I'm just kind of so what is the point of the protruding bones though with the arms? Is it going?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Yes. This is for the cacti, because how else are you going to get at a cactus except with bigger thorns than a cactus has? So it goes about its own route around wherever it is. And it starts like slicing at the cactus bases. And that allows the sap or the inner liquid to kind of start to seep out a little bit. And then as it finally makes its way around, and it might take, a few days to go through its entire little path. As it returns to the first cactus that it slashed open, by this time, that liquid has fermented into a kind of mezcal. So, and as you know, mezcal is it's like tequila.
So wait, the whole purpose of this creature is, so he's making some kind of rounds around different cactus, just slicing them open and just for days, just running around slicing cactus as far as he can go and coming back to his original cactus and going, finally, I can get drunk now. And then he just does basically a pub crawl.
Yeah, and he goes through the same route, just at each cactus, just drinking it up like he's never had it before, like he's super thirsty, because of course you're thirsty in the desert. That's what these cats do. They just they get drunk off of cacti, and that's why we think they're not really harmful to people because they're usually just too fucked up to do anything to people. But some cats and people are dangerous on alcohol. Some of them do go a little bit off the rails.
I was going to say, this thing does seem aggressive in any way. Like, I wouldn't want to run into it, one, slicing up cactus, running around, or when he's on a bender, drinking all this stuff because he's got those sharp, bony things. Even if he wants to be pet because he's all drunk, he's going to mess your hand up.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, drunk people are messy.
Well, no, he's got all those prickles
Even
all
if they
over
love
him.
you.
I don't want a pet cactus cat. He's got like a bony tail.
Yeah, I'm going to be like, oh, come on. Just come. I just want a hug. And like, no, really.
He gets all affectionate after about 3 or 4 cactus.
Yeah. And I wish I knew the rate at which they get drunk. I don't know if it's on the first one, they already get tipsy, but this is a routine thing.
The size of a bobcat's pretty big. It might take him 3 or 4 before he hits that limit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole cactus though. Like,
I guess so.
I'm trying to think like if it was me. If it was me, it might take me just a couple of cactuses being like, oh.
Like getting sick of one, like, all right, enough of this. On to the next one.
And this is also to assume that there are no other creatures getting this mezcal, like alcohol, before they can get to it. So they probably are not getting the entire full cactus worth of booze,
Yeah, there could be some other cryptid who just follows this thing and just catches them all before him.
If they can figure out that route, that's good, which actually did happen, it turns out. There are people who have figured out the routes of them that they were taking and would kind of position themselves to they'll trail after the cat and make notes and then try to circumvent the cat before getting to his first one, or just try to intervene and get in there. But he doesn't like that. That's when they get aggressive. The cactus cat, it says, and I got this also from Henry Tryon's Fearsome Creatures of the Lumber Woods. The cactus cat does not like humans stealing cactus sap to be made as a syrup alternate and kills those who did. So if you like agave syrup instead of sugar as your sweetener, beware, because this cat is not happy with you if they're still around.
Just get your own.
Yeah. It's said that they were extinct because of cactus harvesting, but I mean, a cactus is not the same as agave. So, and I feel like there's plenty for everyone. I don't think there's a lot of people who do not believe that they are extinct, that they are actually still out there, quote unquote, fiddling drunk and waltzing off in the moonlight as they do.
There's lots of stuff that a lot of people aren't seeing going on. And sure, there could be a little, how cats are. They can serve, they're survivors. They will always be around, even if they're cactus
little guys.
Cats. They are scrappy, especially if you're a cactus cat. I love this story. I feel, I don't like the fact that they might have been almost brought to the brink of extinction by people trying to get there. It's like, it's not that hard to do what Cactus Cat is doing. It's like, how do you figure this out? It's like any cactus you can do this to. Don't mess with this guy's route.
Nature ferments stuff on its own. It'll do that. Just, let the desert population have their thing. We have plenty of resources to harvest. We can let the cat have this.
It's true. This cat can't do it. How did this thing evolve into just, becoming, almost a complete alcoholic?
Oh, I wish I knew.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because I did also fail to mention earlier that the reason why the cactus cat is also known as cactus head is that it's been described as having literal it's a cactus as the head. Like, yeah, it splinters off for the tail and everything and branches off. I can actually kind of see that happening when you look at things like leaf bugs, like the stick insects and everything like that, when they try to blend into their surroundings. That's fine. I can understand it. But how do you have a head made of cactus and are able to also still get drunk off of the cactus? Like, you can't get drunk off of your own head.
This is a confusing part of it. I think I've seen some of these images, and it does look like just like almost like a wolf, or maybe something like a cat, maybe a bobcat, with just all these just cactusy brambles for a head. There's no feline features of the head at all. I just think that has to be a sighting. That's later era drunk cactus cat that they're seeing, who's just he's somehow gotten into a patch of something and just all over his face, and he's kind of lost.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot more sense, because I have seen sightings of a thing called cactus head, and it does seem to line up with cactus cat as far as, I don't know, physical features and how big the thing is. Just this one's head is just not cat. It's just all cactus. Like, it got way deep in the cactus.
Yeah, it's too far gone. It's like other problems. I guess your body starts to react to the amount of whatever. Like, I don't know. You've seen the transformations of people before they started doing meth, and then a few years after they started doing
cactus. Like, is that what this is?
Yeah, they turn into cactuses, and it just goes horribly wrong.
This poor
It's
kid.
not a good thing.
All right.
I know. I do definitely feel for these cats. Like I want them to keep getting, their happy juice and everything that makes them happy. But if that's like where they're getting all of their nutrients from, what are you going to do? You can't have an intervention and tell them to stop eating.
I guess not. I don't know. I like this thing. This is the second kitty we've actually brought. We've talked about acoustic kitty at the very beginning.
yes.
This is something different. We have cactus cat, acoustic cat.
It's very different. Yeah.
Maybe combine those together. That would be a great. I don't know what you would do with that.
Good band.
It's just a very cool cryptid, but I have one that we need to talk about. And this is another mysterious creature of the desert. One is not as close to home as cactus cat. This is from the Gobi Desert. It is the Mongolian death worm.
Mm-hmm.
The Gobi Desert is a very remote and inhospitable area in the countries of China and Mongolia. And this is an area that was virtually unexplored by Westerners until the last century. It's a very mysterious, unexplored desert, Mora. It's a good place for a cryptid, yes?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Any kind of lesser inhabited area is the best place. And this creature might be the reason, or at least one of the many reasons why people do not live there.
It could be. And I'm going to describe this. This is the Mongolian death worm. It is described as 5 to 7 feet long worm, red in color with black blotches along its body and having spiked projections at both ends of its body. So almost like cactus cat, who had a little spiked projection on the tail. This on both sides. This worm, 5'7". So don't think Dune. Don't think giant monster sandworm. This is more human size, 5 to 7 feet, red in color.
Okay.
And the nomadic Mongolian tribes of the Gobi Desert, they call the creature Algohai Korkoi, which translates roughly to intestine worm. And it's called that because of its resemblance to a living cow intestine.
Oh, specifically a cow intestine.
Very specifically a cow intestine. It just sounds like a plausible creature. Think about this, a big red worm slithering around the Gobi Desert. And it's not as out there as some of the stuff we've come across, like ropins or something like that. Like
no, definitely.
Desert worm
so
almost
scary.
Sounds real.
It does. And I believe that there are things like that. I mean, when you look at just parasites, like parasitical worms, you don't want to think that those exist, but they do. And so when you say like an intestine worm,
that's what brought you to
that's what kind of what.
That. Yeah, but this is the intestine itself has become the worm. That's
horrifying.
Yeah, it's very, very. It's nightmarish. But there is more to this big red worm. There is the death part. The Mongolian death worm has the ability to squirt a lethal corrosive venom at its prey, killing them instantly. The venom turns whatever it touches into a corroded yellow color. And it also has the ability to kill from several feet away by discharging a powerful electric shock. This is a formidable monster. This is not something you want to run into the desert.
Even if it couldn't shoot acid and electrocute me from a distance, I still wouldn't want to come across it because it just
looks gross.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't like potato bugs. Jerusalem crickets, whatever you're going to call them. Those things freak me out. They're pretty well harmless to people, but I still never, I looked up cricket. I typed in cricket on my phone to look at the cute little small brown crickets that we get in California. Yet I was flooded with images of potato bugs and I literally was revolted. Like I couldn't.
Well, potato bugs.
I can't imagine coming across this thing.
Are doing that, yeah. And you think about these poor nomads out there in the in Gobi Desert. They never stood a chance to this. So
getting spat on and fucking electrocuted,
even if you didn't run away, it's very horror movie.
How are they able to conduct that kind of electricity? That's amazing.
People have theories about that. I'm going to get to. And according to legend, when the creature begins to attack, it raises half its body out of the sand and starts to inflate until it explodes, releasing the lethal poison all over the unfortunate victim. And its primary prey is desert nomads and livestock. That includes you, Royo.
Royo, but don't scare. I know. That's another reason why I need to keep her safe.
She is in the desert.
It's too dangerous. And I mean, yes, this is in the Mongol and this is in the Gobi Desert, but you just never know, especially out here. Never know what's going to pop up.
You're right. So this is how people know about this. The first known reference in English comes from a man named Professor Roy Chapman Andrews. He was an American paleontologist. In his 1927 book, On the Trail of Ancient Men, Roy Chapman Andrews, man, this guy's super interesting. He's actually supposed to be the inspiration for Indiana Jones.
No
it's
way.
supposed to be based on him because he was doing a lot of adventurous exploring in the 1920s.
It sounds like it.
This guy, Roy Chapman Andrews, he was not entirely convinced by the tales that he heard at a gathering of Mongolian officials. And here's a quote from the original Indiana Jones. Quote, "None of those present ever had seen the creature, but they all firmly believed in its existence and described it minutely." And I mean, I guess it makes sense that no one had seen it because they would probably be dead from what has been described so far.
I mean, if it's that deadly, look, I mean, people have lived to see many animals that are deadly, encountered a shark, encountered a bear.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We do know about them a good bit.
Yeah,
It's the Gobi
you can
Desert.
see one and still survive.
Those people really believe. And the reason that not a lot was known about this creature, other than that brief mention in the 1920s, is because Mongolia was under Soviet control until 1990 and the fall of the USSR. So not a lot of Western researchers or explorers were daring to make their way out there. And since that time, there have been a handful of respected monster hunters who have traveled to the Gobi Desert in search of this deadly creatures. And one of them, who actually pulled this off before, the end of the USSR, because he was from Czechoslovakia, was a man named Ivan Mackerel. Ivan Mackerel is known as one of the leading Loch Ness monster detectives. And believe me, it's not lost on me that the guy's name is Mackerel, and he is very into the Loch Ness monster.
No, but how is he one of the leading experts? Like in what way?
Okay, I wouldn't say leading experts. I'm gonna say leading detectives because he took like a very adventurous approach to life early on. He was born like in the 40s, and he studied the region and interviewed a lot of people in Mongolia about the worm. He made a great expedition out there. And due to the sheer volume of sightings and strange deaths, that he came to the conclusion that the death worm was more than just legend. This guy actually believed in it. And he was hardcore as far as discovering the death worm, because as soon as he could, in 1990, he made an expedition there. He also returned in 1992 and 2004. The Mongolian death worm, this was like this guy's white whale. And he passed away in 2013, and he actually thought he found the death worm, but he left convinced, even though he never found it.
I'm curious what it was he found that he was so convinced of it. I've heard bits about the Mongolian death worm before, but not enough to see that there was any physical evidence, just stories, just people's encounters.
I think it was, I don't know what kind of evidence he was finding, but he's a super interesting character, just like Indiana Jones. He spent a lot of time looking for Nessie and Loch Ness, and he also traveled to Australia to search for the Tasmanian tiger and Madagascar.
Oh, and the yowie?
He went to Madagascar to look for something called the elephant bird.
Never heard of that. We'll have to take a note.
We have to take a note. Elephant birds are out there in Madagascar. That is something interesting. And here is a description of the death worm from Ivan Mackerel. Quote, "Sausage-like worm over 1/2 meter long and thick as a man's arm, resembling the intestine of cattle. Its tail is short, as if it was cut off, but not tapered. It is difficult to tell its head from its tail because it has no visible eyes, nostrils, or mouth. Its color is dark red, like blood or salami."
Okay. Now I'm getting a better picture of it for sure. That last part helped.
It is very specific, in the little details like that. They go, oh, he's like a salami monster with spikes on it.
Yeah. That's going to make me afraid of salami and summer sausage and whatnot. But the fact that it's also human size in length and everything, but so the width of it is still cow intestine like. But
I don't think it's that thin. I think it's human. I think it just looks like a human sized intestine. Yeah, that might be a bit confusing as far as that goes. Because he wouldn't be as intimidating if he was just because that would just be a regular intestine. Those probably are very long.
Look, I would still be just as terrified of it if it's capable of doing what has been claimed. That's nothing to fuck around with. I'm just wondering, are we going to, what kind of caliber weaponry we're going to need against something like this? Are we pulling out all the guns like Reba?
Airstrikes are the only way to deal with these things, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, because this reminds me of Tremors, obviously. I can't go without saying that. And
And no, tremors is a good thing to bring up. Believe me, this thing did have a definite influence on tremors. The Mongolian death worm, just the concept of it itself. And I can actually answer one of the things you were worried about. So you were saying if there's any actual explanations for some of its powers. Now I can't explain the electrical shock, but he did try to explain the lethal venom. He surmised that the worm extracted its venom from the goyo plant and was capable of delivering lethal electric shocks to its victims. So there's something called the goyo plant in the Gobi Desert, and must be a poisonous plant, and somehow this worm is ingesting it.
Yeah, that's enough for me.
Okay, good enough. Yeah. And in 1992, Mackerel made a second 8-week trip to Mongolia, during which he was warned at a Buddhist monastery that the worm was a creature of, quote, supernatural evil, and that he was endangering his life searching for the creature. Mackerel recalls having a vivid dream about the worm and states that he woke up with unexplained blood-filled boils on his back.
Ew.
He collected enough photographs, footage, and data to make a documentary on his trips to Mongolia, broadcast on Czech television in 1993 as The Sand Monster Mystery. I looked for this. I could not find the original video of this from 1993, The Sand Monster Mystery on Czech television. We have to push one of the media guys at ZDS to dig this up. This has to be found.
Yeah, that sounds pretty important to it. I don't know what connection that this is supposed to make, that he had a dream about it and woke up with blood-filled boils. Like, these creatures are not in any way,
it's a loose connection, yeah.
Interdimensional, where they can just astral project and inflict wounds on people.
If the Buddhist monastery is warning him, they're already getting in his head already. So dreams are one thing.
Be something else.
When something gets in your head, you are going to dream about it anyway. But the boils, maybe a little more. Maybe it's just a way to get out of having to find this deadly worm or get shocked.
I don't see why monks should ever be looking for it anyway. Like I said, I do believe that if that happened to him, that was probably something else attacking him on some other level. I don't believe that these worms also have the ability to attack people.
These are not
and
mind
inflict
worms.
Wounds through their dreams. Yeah, they're not. I mean, I hope not. Jeez.
I don't want dream worms in the desert. That's not good.
The worst. No.
So I did find Mackerel, though, very fascinating. He had a very cool first adventure as a monster hunter. This is the young Mackerel adventures, like Indiana Jones. Here it is. Saving up his money in his early 20s, Mackerel bought and refurbished a German amphibious Jeep for World War II. Quote, "It was the ideal car for expeditions," he says. "It has 4-wheel drive, it can go in the water, and with that, he and 2 friends were off on their first expedition outside the country to Transylvania. They were going to find Dracula's castle." Yes, Mora. His first hunt was Dracula.
Very ambitious.
It was, because he only used the novel as a guide, the Bram Stoker novel. He just followed the same roads Van Helsing took in the book, and I guess he wasn't aware that Bram Stoker never actually went to Transylvania. He did claim to find some old walls out there, but,
good for him.
He was kind of on the other side of the country from where the actual Dracula's castle is. And in the early 2000s, he suffered from heart problems, but recovered. And by 2004, he launched his 3rd expedition to Mongolia in the late summer of that year. He scoured the desert with ultralight pilot Jiri Zitka, a video camera attached to the aircraft. That's a smart way to search for it, and a safe way. I like the safe way, flying around with a camera.
Yeah, I'd go more, like underground.
Yeah, you're right. Well, you should have told him that. He didn't have the money or the tech for that. He had a crack pilot.
No, I suppose not, but we do.
All right. He concluded that the creature was likely mythical, the figment of imagination, or a, quote, psychological problem, as he put it, brought about by the extreme heat of the desert. And sadly, that was his final word on the death worm. He was one of the true believers, one of the biggest hunters of it. I think he just got burned out looking for this thing.
It sounds like it could be a multitude of things. People who are in this field, as you know, occasionally will go into this mode of, I don't know, what can we call it, like the rabbit hole syndrome, where you just slowly start to drive yourself crazy. So I can see that happening.
I could see it with this, too, because he was definitely someone into adventure and looking for things. And it's definitely more believable than Nessie and Dracula.
Oh, yeah. And then, like you said, him being such a young Indiana Jones probably did get himself into some form of adventure related trouble. You know, he could have died from anything out there.
He was kind of like a real adventurer, man. Like some of the things that he got up to, he talked about, like, he was like, yeah, I'm into these mysteries and myths, but even if they're not real, what better way would I want to spend my time than just going through the desert or the jungle with a machete and
just
talking
checking it out
and talking
for fun.
body stories with locals and looking for monsters. He's like, I'm having the time of my life doing this. He was very open about that aspect of it.
So more than likely he went doing what he loved, and that should be commended for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And there are a few other well-known expeditions in the Gobi Desert for the death worm. And in 2005, the CFZ, the Center for Fortean Zoology, they had a very well-documented search ending with some good stories, but no actual proof of worm. But the death worm is kind of a little bit well-known. I think you and I know it first from a card game we found called Cryptid Trumps.
I remember it being on there, yeah. I mean, I've heard about it before. I always just likened it to the Tremors movie. That's all I ever envisioned. And if I'm not mistaken, if I recall correctly, the artwork on these Cryptid Trumps cards, it kind of looks like that. It looks like one of these worms that almost has like a Sarlacc pit looking mouth, right? Just like a million teeth. Yeah,
I was the first mention of it in popular media. The main antagonist in the Tremor series called Graboids. They are all based upon the death worm. So the Graboids are our modern pop culture equivalent of the death worm. Here's another note. The death worm did make an appearance on Lost Tapes, where a pack of death worms attack a couple of ATV riders who are stranded in the Mongolian desert. I'll have to note that.
Because they were making too many vibrations. You got to be careful.
Can't take your ATVs.
I've watched Tremors enough. I think I could handle this shit. Or at least survive.
And even bigger than that, in 2010, the sci-fi original movie Mongolian Death Worms, the worms are seen as gigantic slug-like creatures with extendable jaws and able to climb walls. The worms in this movie don't have the ability to shock or spit acid, unlike the traditional legend says.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess going back to my only point of reference in pop culture with Tremors, those guys, I believe, they did do some other shit. Oh no, I'm just thinking of when they got shot up and they kind of looked like the melted insides of those calzones you get from middle school and high school cafeterias.
Calzone intestines, yeah.
Yeah, yummy. They definitely didn't have any kind of electric. That's what I wish I could understand is how are they getting these electro currents to be and shoot them out?
Was it building up friction down there? Is there something underneath the Gobi Desert that we don't know about?
Can't just look at something and deliver electricity to it. Like no matter what you are.
Yeah, it seems like a Pokemon skill.
Yeah. Even an electric eel, you have to come into contact with it.
How do you think about that? A land eel.
Yeah.
Maybe they're evolved from the same family as a land eel. They're kind of built the same. Maybe they're just a more evolved eel. Yeah, how are eels shocking things in water? So same thing.
Yeah, that shit's bizarre. But at least we know contact needs to be made. You can't shoot lightning bolts at anybody, no matter what biological entity you are. Unless you're made of lightning. I don't know.
You can make a desert Frankenstein with a Mongolian death worm.
Well, shit. There we go.
You can bring something back to life.
I'm very interested in this aspect because it sounds like it's got some other handle on electricity and grounding and that's able to like actually control it and manipulate it. That's something to look into. I think that's very useful technology.
It's overpowered. The venom that is actually explained with the boil plant and everything, and with the mystery of the electrical charge.
Venom.
And being in the least hospitable place in the world that you don't want to be, in the Mongolian desert between Mongolia and China. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have gone out there. A lot of people travel. A lot of people come back believing, though. They really do. Like that big 14 expedition, the locals are very convincing. The Mongolian death worm. I mean, that's all I got. That's all I have for the death worm. Agent Mora, you want to move on to something else?
I'm ready to move on, yes.
All right. I have one more desert cryptid-based thing. And actually, before I go on, you mentioned cactus head earlier. I was doing a little research on cactus head. I found it is listed on Urban Dictionary. And the street slang cactus head is defined as someone who is annoying or will not stop annoying you. So this is the actual street term, cactus head. It was coined by Darby Crash of the Germs in the late 70s.
Well, who knows what he was talking about?
That's true.
Who knows where he got that from?
That is a very lame insult too. Like, Darby Crash and Punk in the 70s. Very cool. Calling someone cactus head. It's like, all right.
Nah, don't invite him. He's just a cactus head. Like, what?
Yeah, what
Oh,
a
you
piss
know,
off
he's
cactus
annoying.
head. Donnie's
Oh.
such a cactus head was one of
You
the.
can't touch them because then you get splinters and thorns.
All right, Darby Crash, enough. But R.I.P. We do have one more desert-based cryptid, and this is the Yucca Man. Yucca Man. The Yucca Man is a supposed desert-adapted Sasquatch said to live throughout California, Nevada, and Arizona. Bigfoot, Mora, in the desert.
In the desert. I've never heard of that, and I grew up in California. Never heard of this.
You're going to hear a lot more. Stories of the Yucca Man began sometime in the 1960s and 70s when the Mojave Desert military base expanded in the years following World War II. When recruits and patrolmen told of encounters with an 8-foot-tall, hairy biped, a common story was that a recruit was on guard duty in his little guard shack. You can imagine that.
They're tiny. Yeah.
He smells a very awful odor. He starts hearing growling outside of his little guard shack, and his guard shack is being circled by some kind of very smelly creature that is growling at him.
That's kind of the worst combination. Like you have to be afraid, and then also it smells bad on top of it.
And he's running around you.
Yeah.
When the guard steps out to investigate, he is knocked unconscious, awaking later to find that his rifle is bent in half. Yucca Man. This is a very brazen Bigfoot. He's not the gentle forest-dwelling Sasquatch that we've come to know and love.
Well, no, he just doesn't like guns.
And the desert can change a man, a Yucca Man at least. The majority of the Yucca Man sightings, though, they come from the campers in Joshua Tree National Park. I know you're pretty familiar with Joshua Tree National Park, that area, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty sparse, you know?
Yeah, it is.
So you'd think that these kinds of cryptids would be a little more noticeable.
And in Joshua Tree National Park, people claim that a horrible-smelling creature stalks the campsites and opens tents. That's a big thing he does. I don't know if he's trying to peek in at what's going on, but that is
probably hungry.
Probably. I thought a lot of people tie up their food, I guess, for bears and stuff, but
that's the thing. Yeah, that makes sense in the mountains with bears, but where are you going to tie your food up in the desert?
That's true. You are camping out in the desert. And he does almost the same MO of what we heard of Yucca Man before, where he will run around in circles around the tents. That's not a normal Bigfoot activity, but just running around in circles, howling like a maniac.
Well, maybe he's doing the same cactus cat thing, and he's running around in circles. He's mad because the cat's taken his mezcal.
See, there might be a whole subculture of these desert creatures doing their own thing that we're just not aware of.
They're all fiending for substances, you know, like, because again, we don't know if it's a straight up alcohol, but there's also things like peyote out there. There's all kinds of psychotropic substances in the desert. So maybe that's what's happening with these cryptids.
The poyo plant in Mongolia. You're right. Every desert cryptid we heard of is out there trying to get wasted.
That might be it. They're just a little bit crazy. It's kind of like when you run into meth heads and crackheads and stuff in the urban areas, because that definitely is a thing. It's out there in the desert too. Typically out in the desert, it's a lot of meth activity.
So the desert cryptids are just the fuck ups of all the cryptids.
They might. I'm thinking so.
The woodland ones are very peaceful. They're out there eating berries, playing in streams. The desert ones are just hardcore fear and loathing kind of cryptids.
I would think that the substances are a bit more extreme in the desert. I don't think that the ones in the forest are without. Well, I don't want to say without sin, because I don't think it's a sin
they got
to indulge
and stuff. They're kind of more mellow.
They're definitely having fun. It's just we don't see them as much because there's so many trees and so much foliage for them to hide. But out here in the desert, it's all out in the open. You know, what are you going to do?
But it's so hot. Nobody wants to go out there.
That too. They're just out there partying. It's a nonstop Burning Man for these cryptids.
It's true. And there is also some physical evidence in the form of very large footprints that were found in Joshua Tree. And they've also captured the occasional blurry photo. This is Desert Bigfoot. He has blurry photos. There is
you need to have.
There is a famous Yucca Man photo from a place called the Hidden Valley Campground, and we got a chance to look at it.
You sent me one.
I did. We looked at it back there, and it is very blurry, but it's intriguing. What did you think of that picture?
It definitely looks very Photoshop.
You think so? It's over a decade old. It's an older picture.
Over a decade old? How long do you think Photoshop's been around?
You're right.
It's been around for like 3 decades at least. But just looking at, so look at the body shape, right? And do you see those lines, those horizontal kind of lines going across? That looks like the crop tool, like, and the patch tool. Where you're going like you're just trying to find nearby things. That's what that looks like to me.
Blur here, blur here. It does look like the thing from Rudolph, though, almost. It looks more Yeti-ish
than
your traditional. It looks like Bumble, I think he's called.
That's what I was trying to remember. I was like the abominable snowman, but the Yukon whoever
Jack,
calls him. Yukon Jack?
I think so. Yukon Cornelius. Sorry.
Cornelius. Yeah,
there we go.
So different from Jack.
Yukon Jack is some kind of liquor, probably.
I mean, look, Yukon Jack would probably be fun to hang out with too.
Is that a wrestler? It probably is.
It is now. I want this guy to be real. I like that kind of big hulking, like snowman type feel where he looks and his head's like down and he looks kind of sad, like he just wants a friend, but no one wants to hug him because he's so brambly and like dry and crusty and shit. But I'd hug him.
They just have adapted to the desert. That's what sets this guy apart from regular Sasquatch Bigfoot. He is hairy, but he is not as hairy.
He's not as scary.
He's described as just slightly not hairy as Bigfoot because he's in the desert for so long. I'm pretty sure almost cactusy now, like Cactus Cat. Like he's got
more thorny than hairy, and that's even worse. Like nobody likes that. That sucks.
No one's hugging any of these creatures. I think that's the problem.
That's the problem. The desert is such a lonely place, and I think if we just go out there, show some kindness, maybe share some of our mezcal and tequila with them.
Protective gear, if you're going to try and
that too. Yeah. You're not going to want to just hug them with bare skin. That's going to hurt for sure. Put on something like, I don't know, put on an equally scraggly sweater. I know it's the desert, but just do it.
Yeah, like Angora. Bring an Angora sweater and go out there and go.
Oh, that's very nice and luxurious.
It is.
They might enjoy that.
And it's very 70s where we know this thing from, but this thing actually has history beyond the 70s and 60s because prior to the modern sightings, the natives who lived in California, long before European colonization, they considered these creatures to be supernatural entities with names that often translated to, quote, hairy devils. This creature had names in the California region such as Taquits, and that's what the indigenous people called the Yucca Man, Taquits. And here is a quote I found regarding the supernatural origins of Yucca Man. Quote, Taquits has also been said to manifest as a large green fireball moving through the night sky.
Whoa. How did they figure that?
I'm not sure, but there is a very disembodied kind of element to this Yucca Man, to this deserty Sasquatch, where sometimes he's just a pair of eyes that is looked around, that he is kind of a formless beast. And he's also considered one of the original shamans to indigenous people. But in the 70s, though, to get away from any indigenous lore about this being this, very supernatural, weird thing he's a large green fireball going into warp drive. I don't understand where that comes into it. But in the 70s, he just seems like an aggressive pest. And like I said, one of his favorite things to do was to run circles around houses or camps while he's growling and being smelly.
Oh, what a maniac. What a little scamp.
So Southern California encounters, they were common enough in the 1970s that there were multiple Bigfoot investigation groups. They probably had rooms. These groups had these rooms that are just taking reports constantly in the early 70s about Yucca Man Bigfoot.
Damn, like a PBS marathon.
Yes, there was a whole phone bank of volunteers taking nothing but Yucca calls. He was a real problem.
Jeez. How come I didn't hear about this? I mean, I know I wasn't alive
your time, Mora.
in the 70s, but you'd think that I would hear about it later on, of like, the big old telethon for the Yucca Man.
That telethon, yes, where we got all the forces together. Well, no, it gets worse because in March of 1973, a babysitter and 3 Marines, separately, we're going to presume.
3 separate Marines.
A babysitter and 3 separate Marines. They reported seeing the Sasquatch in Lancaster. And in May of 1973, a search party in Lancaster attempting to follow up on several, quote, Bigfoot reports were forced to take cover when another party on the same sort of search panicked and started shooting when they thought they were being approached by a large creature. Fortunately, no one was injured. This sounds like a cluster. You have multiple Bigfoot hunting groups in the 70s in Lancaster, California, and they end up shooting at each other.
This is the worst case scenario for the idea that Jack had propositioned about Bigfoot hunters doing the tree knocks. And like, what if they're not hearing tree knocks from Bigfoot? They're hearing tree knocks from other Bigfoot hunters. This is the worst conclusion of that kind of event.
Oh, yeah. These are armed groups of civilians out there searching for mythical creatures, multiple of them. They need better communication. Now, this was pre-internet. I'm sure these groups are all consolidated into one thing now. Well, who knows?
I hope they're all full of shame.
That could have been two neighboring towns, and then they each had a group that was super into Bigfoot. They just didn't know. They went to different libraries
hunting teams
or something. Yeah. They found different ways into these clubs. They end up one
they
group
must have found
ends
the
up
same
shooting.
Library.
One group. Well, where else? The library kind of was the internet of the 70s, right?
That's it. Yeah, they all had the same information, so they all convened onto the same location, and then thought that each other was the target. That's horrible.
They shouldn't have each had an 8-foot tall hairy guy in their group. That was kind of their downfall.
Make sure you have just small, unassuming people on your team.
That's right.
Who do not look threatening.
And don't go armed to begin with. I mean, I guess Yucca Man was that big of a threat, though?
How are you going to protect yourself? Maybe you just have small melee weapons.
Yeah, I say that.
Don't no ballistics.
I say that as we're armed. Yeah, I know the benefits of just having a whip or your keys between your fingers out in the desert. It's not good. Yeah.
Somebody like you needs to be held back in the back ranks. I am very conservative with my trigger action. Myself, you
should be frontline on these teams.
Yes,
you would not be firing at rivaling.
I'm
Bigfoot
very
groups.
Conservative with ammo. First of all, because I think about what if this isn't the last encounter. I'm not trigger happy, as they say.
I'm sure a lot of people this was their last encounter. Like, all right, I'm done. I'm not getting shot by someone else.
Oh, I thought you meant that they got killed.
No,
yeah.
Well, no. Luckily,
they just decided
no
that
one,
it was their last.
No
encounter.
one was harmed, thankfully, through this whole digression here. And but there is more about Yucca Man. And the strangest tales, they come from Edwards Air Force Base itself. This desert base adjoins the massive Rogers Dry Lake with its miles of smooth desert runways. And this is the home of the famed Right Stuff test pilots that, doing NASA stuff and landing space shuttles there. Edwards Air Force Base, very famous. Security cameras at Edwards Air Force Base, they were always pointed at sensitive areas. And according to persistent stories from Edwards, those cameras repeatedly captured images of desert Sasquatch moving through the tunnels by night. Entire families of the hairy monsters apparently traveled the base's buildings and corridors, appearing and disappearing at will, and to the bewilderment of base police sent chasing after the phantasms. So there is somewhere buried at Edwards Air Force Base security images of families of Sasquatches, desert Sasquatches, Yucca men and women and children.
Somewhere out there, Yucca children.
Yucca children running around tunnels and disappearing. Again, the supernatural element comes in where they're almost seen as just glowing eyes floating around or just...
Is that how it was described though? When they, how would you describe that it was a family if they were just seeing floating eyes?
I think they're phasing in and out. I think there's something weird going on. I think they're seeing them as these creatures.
They would have described it as just blinking lights, wouldn't they? Surely they're seeing some kind of corporeal form.
I think they are. I think this thing is shifting somehow its features, or it's able to disappear when it doesn't want to be seen, but they're capturing this on film and they're relaying this. Whoever works at Edwards Air Force Base is like, yeah, I watched the cameras. We saw Bigfoot families and they were weird all the time, but they were desert Bigfoots, Yucca men.
Here's the thing. I believe that these people saw something weird. I believe that there were some kind of things. The thing that I find hard to believe is the ability to just blink in and out of visibility. Like they have this kind of cloaking mechanism that does and doesn't work at times. Because you would think if they're going through a place like that, they would just make sure to not be seen. If they have the capability to be invisible, they would stay invisible
It seemed real
in the danger
comfortable
zones.
there. It seems
I
like
don't know.
it seems like these bases kind of infringed on their own territory,
Why
and they're
would
just
they
like,
be?
well, this is still our area. And here's another interesting tidbit I found. While Yucca Man and its cohorts are often described as huge, hair-covered humanoids, there are nearly as many reports of shadow beasts lacking any definition beyond their brilliant, glowing eyes.
That must be different.
It has to be, right?
Absolutely. There's so many weird things out there, so many weird entities that I'm not going to say do and don't exist, but it's like I was saying before, there are times where you see something and something weird happens. You can't ascribe all of the weird things to being the same thing, you know? Maybe they're all different things. So a shadowy figure where all you see is its eyes versus something that you see full-bodied, moving around. Why wouldn't you think that those are two separate things?
It does play in that whole weird quantum Bigfoot, and that's why we don't see Bigfoot is because he's some interdimensional creature. And stuff like, yeah, that's when you're getting into all that.
That gets to be too much for me.
It's the woo element of Bigfoot that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
This is Yucca Man. I want to know that he's just some weird Bigfoot that can live in the desert. I don't know how Bigfoot would live in the desert, but he is doing it because he's hiding in bases and he's bringing his family with him. And he's on
Why would he hide in the bases? That's the danger zone. Like, why would he be safe there?
Who knows? That's what makes these desert cryptids so just very, very sets them apart a lot from a lot of things. And I don't think I want to run across any of these creatures.
Definitely not.
I'm glad that none of these are known to inhabit the zona. We have enough problems here
that we know of.
Right, exactly. Speaking of problems, do you see that thing slowly floating towards us?
I was trying to not bring your attention to it because I know that you got your blaster back.
No, hold on. Yeah, well, it looks like some kind of fucked up balloon animal. Rhonda, Yolanda, don't stay. Don't bite.
Not go.
Don't.
It's okay.
Don't.
I've got her on a leash.
She bit the balloon. Wait.
Okay. Well, the leash was way.
Wait.
Too
What do you
long.
have there? What do you have there, girl? Okay, I think
Ew.
she found something in there. What do you got, girls?
This thing's fucking disgusting.
It's a note.
What the fuck is that?
It's a note. Should I read this? This is really hard to make out.
No, don't read it. Of course you should read it.
It looks like it's written in crayon or lipstick or something. All right. It says, I'm trying to read this. It says, left for dead in your zona, chaos will now reign. Bring back my mommy Willow, or your agents will feel pain. All right, that's a dumb rhyme. Look, I have an idea. Let's
throw it away.
Hold on. No, I have an idea. I'm not going to throw it away. I have an idea. It's time to see if Royo remembers what I taught them. Okay. All right. Look, girls, here.
You taught them
Hold
stuff?
on. Yeah, well, I had a little time with him here. This is a little trick I learned. So here, girls, smell this note. All right. So here. You got it? All right. Look. Go get him. Go find. See, I taught him.
What have you
I taught the girls to track. Watch.
When I'm gone.
Ooh, look. She found it. Oh, that was fast. All right. Oh, look, it is the clown. All right, Mora, let's take this thing together. You ready? Set for stun. Let's bring this thing in. You ready?
Yeah, threatening us?
Let's do it. All right. Good job, everyone.
Bitch ass.
Hey, look, he wants to see Willow.
Come at me and my family.
Look, we can arrange that. I'm sure she's going to be happy to see this clown.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't want anything to do with it.
Look, we were able to clean up our mess, and that's what I am happy about.
Our mess. Man, my goats helped you clean up your mess.
Look, we got to drag this thing out of here, but before we go, Agent Mora, do you have any final words on the case of the desert cryptids? Do you have any favorites?
Well, I mean, I definitely relate to the cactus cat. That's my favorite because it's what I would be like in the desert, how I am in the desert, just, stumbling around, getting drunk when you can, just enjoying the desert for what it is. That's it. Not harming other people, just keeping to myself, just want to have a good time.
I'm the only one living its own life out there as a cryptid. And
yeah,
I'm going to close up by saying this. The desert, it is a harsh and unforgiving place. If any of these stories are true, and creatures such as the death worm or cactus cat have somehow survived in this environment, then they have to go to the top of the list of dangerous and formidable cryptid creatures. And they should be avoided at all costs or left to professionals like us. And I am getting the signal right now. We have to go. Are you going to help me drag this clown out of here?
I guess, man. Let's go. I need to do some cardio anyway.
God, all right, I'm hearing
Do
it.
this. I'll get the left leg.
All right, until next time.
Zona del Silencio is underwritten by ZDS Inc., ZDS R&D, and the Zona del Silencio Media Outreach Department. If you have a case that requires research, we can be contacted through Zona del Silencio Podcast at gmail.com, at Zona del Podcast on Twitter, and Zona del Silencio on Instagram. ZDS. Research, observe, disseminate.
She's playful, but boring would warn you be careful of her brigade in order to tame this relentless marauder. Move away from the parade. She was walking on the tables in the glass house, endearingly bedraggled in the wind, subtle in a method of seduction. 20 little tragedies begin. And she would throw a feather boa in the road if she thought that it would set the scene. Unfittingly dipped into your companions, enlighten them to make you see. And there's affection to rent, the age of the understatement, before the attraction ferments. Kiss me properly and pull me apart, affection to rent.